Tonight we go back to a single day in 1844, October 22nd, when more than 100,000 people were absolutely certain the world as they knew it was about to end. They had sold farms, closed shops, and gathered on hillsides to watch the sky. Nothing happened. That day, and the grief that followed, has a name: the Great Disappointment. But here is the twist. Out of that failed prediction grew one of the fastest-spreading churches in the modern world. Let me show you how. Every story of mass disappointment begins with a promise. This one began with an upstate New York farmer named William Miller, a Baptist layman who taught himself prophecy from the Bible. He became convinced, and convinced tens of thousands, that Jesus Christ would return to earth by 1844 in an event he called the Second Advent. The prediction did not hold, and that rupture is what we will trace over the next few minutes. Picture the scale of this. On October 22, 1844, as many as 100,000 Christians gathered on hillsides, in meeting places, in meadows across the northeastern United States. They were not skeptical onlookers. They were breathless and joyful, genuinely expecting to be taken up to heaven that very day. When we say mass movement, this is what it looked like. In a moment, you will see exactly why they were so sure. The man behind it all was an unlikely prophet. William Miller was a farmer and a Baptist layman, not a theologian, not a seminary graduate. In 1831, he began sharing publicly what his Bible study had revealed, that Christ's return would happen around 1843 to 1844. He was persuasive, and his timing could not have been better. The nation was in the middle of a religious revival called the Second Great Awakening. His message spread with remarkable speed. It all came down to a single verse. Miller studied the book of Daniel, chapter 8, and its phrase, the cleansing of the sanctuary. He read that sanctuary as the earth itself, and the cleansing as the moment Christ would return to purge the world of sin. Doing the arithmetic from that one verse, he settled on a precise date, October 22nd, 1844. One verse, one interpretation, one date, and a movement of tens of thousands was built on it. The tragedy is that it was not just one disappointment, it was a series of them. Miller first predicted Christ would return sometime between March 1843 and March 1844, and that window passed with nothing happening. Then the spring of 1844 passed. The discouraged believers called this stretch the tarrying time, a time of waiting and delay. Desperate for certainty, they recalculated and fixed a precise day, October 22nd, 1844. It was the last date they would set. October 22nd arrived. The crowds gathered and peered expectantly upward, but the hours slipped away. As nightfall descended, the anxiety turned to dread. By the time darkness came, there was no sign, no trumpet, no return. This is the exact moment the Great Disappointment is named for. Not a theological debate, but a human moment. Tens of thousands of people watching a silent sky, realizing they had been wrong. Now watch what happened next, because it is the most instructive part. When the date failed, the movement fractured. Most followers abandoned Miller's message entirely and went back to their lives, and Miller himself withdrew into obscurity and died a few years later. But a smaller group refused to leave empty-handed. They called themselves the Remnant, and instead of walking away, they went back to the Bible to figure out what, if anything, had happened on that day. The Remnant's answer was a stunning reinterpretation. They argued that October 22nd was not a failed return at all. It was the true start of Jesus' final work in heaven. The date was right, they said. The event had simply been misunderstood. Instead of Christ coming down to earth, he had entered a new phase of ministry in the heavenly sanctuary. That reframing let the movement survive its founder's error, and it became the theological seed of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So what does the Great Disappointment actually teach us? First, that mass conviction is no guarantee of accuracy. Certainty can outrun evidence. Second, that communities rarely dissolve after a failure, they reinterpret it. And third, that the movement born from October 22, 1844 is still with us today, with millions of members worldwide. A failed date became a living legacy. Thank you.